Hello, it's me again. I'm coming on to show you a Valentine's card. My name is Kim. I'm a Stampin' Up! Demonstrator. I am located in the Okanagan, BC, and yeah, I'm just going to show you this card today. And I made a matching box to go with it that holds a little treat inside. Inside here I have some kisses. They are the truffle ones, so super yummy. At Christmas time I really love the mint ones, but yeah, for Valentine's Day we got some fancy truffle ones. And this is an easel card, so it stands up to show a little, so you can put it on your mantle and show it that way. It's very fun. I'm just gonna press watch the live video here so that I can see any comments if anybody is watching and is commenting. Okay, perfect. This is a little more complex of a card, so it will be a bit longer of a video just because there's the box attached as well. But it's really nice little gift to give on Valentine's Day. Just to show you the inspiration of what made me think of doing this is sometimes Stampin' Up! Has products that they have memories and more packs, and then they have card bases, and you can make cards out of those things instead of using them for as they were intended for scrapbooking. So these cards, this card pack here, these are intended to just be cards as they are. But I saw the potential of being able to use this a little bit more. So I was able to make the card and decorate the box out of one half of these. Of course, I won't have envelopes to match all the cards because the envelopes are, of course, matching something with two sides here. So I will end up with a little less envelopes. But if you're not mailing it off, you can always just give it to the person just as it is, as the card and the treat box. Yeah, so this just shows that you can stretch some of the supplies if you really like some of them and yeah, you just want to see how far you can push them. So these are called the gold foiled flowers cards and envelopes, and I believe you got 10. It was 10 inside. So I could make 20 cards and 20 treat boxes. So that just stretches it a bit more. Okay. All right, so I will pull my card pack in and we'll work on the card first. I do have this one here. We'll make sure that we make all of the pieces we're gonna need for stamping and embossing. We'll make these extra pieces with this as well at the same time. Okay, so we're gonna start off with our card base, which is cut at 8.5 by 5.5, and we score that at 4 1/4 and at 1 3/4. So 4 1/4 here. This is how you create your easel card. So you do your 4 1/4, fold it with your bone folder, and then we're going to do 1 3/4, and we're folding that inward. So I just line it up with the edge here to make sure that it's straight with that edge, and then I burnish that edge. So as you can see, this now will be able to stand up. But when we're not making it stand up, it'll close into and fit into an envelope. Okay, so we've got that completed. Next up, I'm going to do our I will do our blending. So I pulled in a little piece here because I don't want to get this this matting here really dirty. And when you do this, the red is a fun color. It always gets a little bit more messy than some of the other colors. It is saturated. It also will stain your stamps because it is just such a strong saturated color. Okay, so blending here. This is sometimes tricky for people. A lot of times if you blend and you use your little blending brushes. If you go directly on the cardstock, you'll make a red spot. It'll be very, very, very strong. So I always suggest you come in off of the paper, like off of the paper you're intentionally blending. Tap off that extra right off the top of it, and then pull it in and blend it. So for this card, I'm just blending about halfway up the card, and I want it to kind of have a little bit of an ombre effect. So I'm getting that first layer on the bottom here, and I'm blending upward. Hope I'm not shaking the table too much, although it might. So blending upward. I had two lovely ladies take this class and make this card, and I think they were really proud of what they were able to do. They hadn't really done a lot of stamping before, so it was really nice to see them trying their best to create something they were proud of. One of the ladies, she went and added some extra things, like on the inside of the box, she stamped inside the front cover of the box, and added a Happy Valentine's Day to the box, which wasn't in the original design. I loved it. Might have to do it today just because it just adds that extra Valentine's Day to the box as well. Okay, so you can see we're blending up here, getting to about halfway. Then, because I want the bottom darker, I'm just going to come over the bottom again. So I'm just blending up the bottom. You can see that that's getting a little bit darker on the bottom there. And blending up the bottom. And by doing this blending, what you're really noticing that gold to the paper. You're just adding that lovely gold, or sorry, showcasing that lovely gold by blending in this color. Any color would work. I mean, this card would look beautiful if you had a teal as well. So now you can see that it's blended up to the middle, and the gold is just so strong on that red part. I've got a little bit of a lighter area coming into this flower here. I'm just going to blend a little more red up into that flower. I think we've got that blended out really nicely now. Perfect. All right, I'm going to close up this stamp pad because I am going to try really hard not to get red ink all over me today. I tend to do that. And now, because this is really yucky and I don't want it in my way, I'm going to put it aside. I just do not want to get it all over the place. It would be typical of me to do that, so I'm trying today not to. Okay, so then what we're going to do is we're going to take this and we're going to put this on our red matting paper. So this piece was cut out of the card. I wanted to show you how much I could stretch this. This piece was cut out of just the top, and then the pieces for the box were made out of this half. So you can see I only used half of this sheet. Okay, this was cut at the 4 1/4, which is the width of a card base, and by 3 inches. And then we have our matting, which is generally 1/8 of an inch larger on each side. So we're at 3 1/4 by 4 1/2. Okay, so I will take my Stampin' Seal here. Now, of course, I pulled that a bit, so it pulled off the plastic. And I just used my finger to get back to the sticky part. This is strong stuff, this Stampin' Seal. Love the strength of it. But once you get her down, she's really hard to get back up again if you have a mistake. So sometimes glue is easier. It just allows you to move around a bit more. So now we're going to take this piece and we're going to place it on the center here. But of course I don't want to glue the back here because I want it to be able to pop up. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take my piece here, making sure it's in the, I've got the bottom here, right? I'm going to flip it over, lay it on my card, where I would want it centered. And then I'm going to take my glue in my little trusty glue holder here. I'm going to put glue only to where I can see the fold. So having your card fold ready and folded is really good at this point. So then we're going to take our glue. You can see I'm just going to that line right there and coming back. Just going to try to spread some of this. And as you can see, I'm still underneath that fold line. Then I'm going to take my piece here, place it on the other side, close my card, and glue the piece on. Simple as pie. You wouldn't even know. It seems so much harder, but it's really not. So there we go. We've got that piece done. Next up, I'm going to do the inside of my card while I'm here. Before I get into all the fussy bits, I will do the inside of my card. So this inside piece, the matting is 1/8 of an inch all the way around. So we've got 4 inches by 5 1/4. So that will fit inside my card. And then we've got our writing part at 3 3/4 by 5 inches. And we're going to stamp on this. So I want to stamp about 1 inch up. 1 inch up is 4 squares on your grid mat. So 1 inch up, I'm going to take my Happy Valentine's Day, open up my stamp pad, and this stamp set is actually from my paper pumpkin kit. I decided I was going to pull out my paper pumpkin that I got this month, and I was going to use it for something extra, which is one of the great things about paper pumpkin is you get a free stamp set in the kit. You can keep using that all you want. So Happy Valentine's Day. Again, I'm coming up 4 squares, 1 2 3 4. I'm going to center it to my card and drop it down. Happy Valentine's Day. Simple, simple. Okay, closing this up again because I know I will bump into it. It's a thing. It's a thing. True story. Okay, and then I'm going to use my seal again. A lot of people use glue for the insides of their cards. Of course, I'm not pulling it off properly. For the inside of their cards, I specifically like to use the seal for the inside of the card because it doesn't put any bumps on the paper and you don't see any lines of where you put your glue. So when you're writing, there's not any bumps or anything. It's just nice and flat. Okay, then we're going to seal the back of this or glue. This isn't going to be written on, so I could use glue on this part if I wanted, but I already got my seal out. It's a great product. It works. Holds it down really good. Okay. There we go. Lining up my 3 corners again and then placing it into the card. There we go. Now I've got these 2 strips of gold, and these are just cut at 1/4 of an inch and the width of the card, which is 5 1/2. I take these strips with a little bit of glue, just because they're really skinny strips. The snail is wider, so if you use that, you're going to have to roll the edge of the tapes over. So I'm just going to use my glue here. I've got a little yucky bit on the end there. I'm just going to put that in my holder. Okay. Foil, if you get glue on it, this is a funny trick. You can't really use an adhesive eraser to get it off of foil. You kind of just need to rub your fingers over it. So if it gets sticky, just rub your fingers over it and it will come right off. Just with a little effort. Okay. And we're going to place this right underneath the Happy Valentine's Day. Just across the card. Very simply. Now if it overlaps on the edge, you can just take your paper snips. And you can just cut it from the back if it's just a little bit too long. Ooh, she does not want to dry today. Okay, we're holding that down. Holding that down. Look at that. I got a little bit of glue on there. So I just take my finger and I can just, a little bit of effort, that glue will just come right off. Okay, and that's the mechanism that's going to hold your card up. When you fold this really strongly, it wants to, the easel wants to pop up. So you just place it on there and it's going to hold it into place. That's how the mechanism works. Okay, the next piece, and we've got this funny little fold line here. So I figured a great way to deal with that is to just hide it with a strip. So I'm just placing the strip so that the top part of it just covers up that fold line. And there we go. So you can place the glue on the bottom part of your strip here. So I'm just placing the glue on the bottom just so it doesn't stick to the top where that fold line is. Just very gently and just up from that fold line. There we go. Place it on there as straight as you want. Nobody will notice. They'll see it on the back. So if you feel like you need to come up, that's the beauty thing about glue, is there's a little bit of movement there. And yeah, so you can see on the back now, it's just up a little bit, covering up that fold line. Free and clear. All right. Now we do some of the fussy bits. Okay. So we'll put that aside, and I'm going to pull out my stamping piece here. Now we're going to use embossing powder today. It is like crafting magic. It's just so pretty, but the heat gun will make a little bit of noise. So just a forewarning on that. We're going to grab our Versamark ink, our embossing buddy, our embossing powder, and then just I just have a couple of brushes here just to deal with it. I have two Versamark pads in here. A couple of brushes just to deal with any incidentals on there. Okay, we're going to take our, I'm using this stamp set. It's called Layering Leaves. It's lovely, and it comes with a matching punch that goes with it. So I could have just punched out little gold pieces, but I really like the idea of being a little bit softer, just because this card is ivory and it's outlined with gold. I wanted to kind of keep with that theme. So I pulled out this stamp set, and we're going to stamp one of these, and we're going to stamp two of these with our embossing powder. Okay, so I've got my first one here. Just going to place that in the center here. I'm trying to get all my stamping done on one piece here. And we've got two of these. Now when you're using embossing powder, oh, I forgot to put my embossing buddy on there. That's going to cause me issues. So an embossing buddy is just a powder that stops any of the stamping, stops any of the stamping from sticking to where you don't want, or anything like your fingertips or the oils on your fingers from sticking to the paper. So you can see, I don't know if you can see that, but you can see that it kind of glow, like it's kind of shiny when it goes on. So when you go to put the other ones on, you can see that. So embossing ink dries very slowly, and it allows for you to put embossing powder on there before it dries. Then the embossing powder sticks to the ink and doesn't stick to anywhere else. In theory, if you have sticky stuff on your fingers and you touch it, embossing powder will try to go to those areas. That's why you use the embossing buddy, which I was a little behind on today. Forgot to do that step first. So we'll see what, you'll be able to see what happens when you don't use the embossing buddy. Perfect lesson. So as you can see, I've got these images which had the embossing buddy there. Those images are clear. There's no extra dust around them, but the area of where I didn't have it, they're static. So what's happening is the embossing powder is sticking to all these other areas. Makes it a bit of a nuisance for me because I have to use my brush to get rid of them, or flick the cardstock to get rid of that extra. So I'm going to have to take my little brush here, and I'm going to have to brush off the excess which would have been a lot easier to avoid if I had used that embossing buddy first. Now I don't want to take any of the embossing powder off the areas that I want stamped. So again, that's a nuisance if you don't have that. Other thing that will work is cornstarch, a little bit of flour, like cornstarch, yeah. Okay, and then we're just going to set that aside. I'm going to grab my heat embossing tool over here. This is our Stampin' Up! Heat gun embossing tool, and what I'm going to do is turn this on. That's going to be a little bit noisy, so you can mute the screen for that. So what we're looking for is this gray dull, this kind of dull look to turn into gold. Just watch, it will. I always do a little once over to make sure that everything has been embossed and it's adhered to the paper. Look at how lovely that is. I'm making powder into gold. Okay, I'm also going to take this little extra bit here that I've got, and I'm just going to brush this off back into my tray. Now, I used very little embossing powder for this, so if you decide to go the embossing powder way, know that you will get so many cards out of that little package of embossing powder. It does not use a lot. It stretches so far. Okay, perfect. Put that aside. Now I need 2 red roses to go with my cards. I'm going to take my red ink again, stamp my red roses on this little piece of paper. These are all going to get punched out with the matching punch for the layering leaves. It's called the bow punch, I believe. 1 rose, 2 roses. Okay. Put that to be cleaned. We'll put this one on later. I've got another piece for that. Okay, so now I'm going to take my paper snips, because this will punch, but it'll punch next to it the little roses. So if I just take my paper snips and I just cut my roses out, I can take my punch now and I can punch out my roses, and I won't cut any of the other paper. So you line up your roses inside the punch. I always try to make sure that my stem is lined up and everything's lined up, and then I give it a little squeeze to kind of pinch it and hold it. Then I release the squeeze a little bit if I think it's not lined up, and then I move it around and make sure that my flowers are in place. But I want to make sure I get that stem in there. If it's a little tighter to one flower or another, that's okay. It's just if I cut that stem off, then it's not, you won't see the stem at all. So then I take all the pressure and push and punch it out. So there is my little rose. Isn't that super cute? Little roses. Now this bow punch has been used with other stamp sets as well. So when you look through the catalog, otherwise you can use them just on their own. So again, just squeezing a little pinch, making sure the tips of my flowers are in the area, and then punching. I just take all my little bits here and toss them in the garbage. Grab my little rose, put that aside. Okay, next ones I've got are these boughs. These leaves here. So again, I'm just going to cut them out separately so I don't punch into the other ones. Flipping my punch over here, and then again lining up that stem into the window, and then making sure the top lines up. Gentle squeeze, make sure everything's in the frame. When I see it's all in the frame, pushing that whole way. So there we go. I've got another one of my leaves. And this one's just a little bit tight to that one side. So I'm just going to cut that piece out there. And I know now that I'm probably going to need to do the same at the bottom there. Okay. We're going to go right in here. And I've got access to that stem now. Light pinching. Not sure if you can see this. Light pinching until I know all my pieces are in. And punch the rest of the way. Put that aside. Line up that stem. I know I'm saying the same things over and over again. It's how I talk to myself too when I'm doing it all. Okay, so now we've got all of our little pieces. We've put them aside. Now we need to assemble. So we will grab our card again, and we're going to grab one of these leaves, the ones with the veins on them, one of these leaves, which looks like coffee beans, and then one little rose for this part of our project. Grab our little glue, or glue dots if you prefer. I'm just going to use glue. I feel like glue will work just fine. I'm just going to place a little bit of glue on the end of one of the leaves. Having the leaves free on the end adds just a little bit more dimension to your project. So if you leave these free, they kind of have movement. So it allows for, yeah, just a little bit more 3D. So I'm just going to place these on the left-hand side, and the leaf is going to go across that, across there. Then I will put glue on my coffee bean leaf. A little bit of glue on there. And kind of going in the opposite direction, like an X at the bottom. I will place my leaf on this side. If you wanted to create even more 3D, you could put it over the edge here. I like that it's within the design, but a lot of times when you do easel cards and stuff, you can put your elements on the outside so that they show. But this design, I just like them on the inside of the frame. And we're going to put some glue on the stem there. And going straight up and down. Now the stem of this, I'm pulling up. Just because these are so small, when I go to put a bow on there, I don't want to cover up the little roses. So I'm just going to put it higher. Then lining it up with the bottom. Then I'm going to take a glue dot a glue dot from my glue dots here. Place it on the back of my bow. Now I've already made my bow. A lot of times, well, my upline Heather, she always told me make bows for customers. It always, because getting a perfect bow on the first try, very difficult to do. So you end up spending a lot of time being finicky with them to get them to perfect. So I save people the time and I tie their bows. If they want to learn how to tie a bow with a fork, or they want to be finicky and do their own bow, hey, it's your bow. You can do that. If you want to redo it, you can take it apart and do it your own way. But it saves people some time, and if they get frustrated easily, it saves them frustration. Okay, that is our card. Fairly simple. There we go. We've got the card done with our Happy Valentine's Day inside. Our little easel cards are ready to go. So it's a little bit complex, but not too bad. Okay, we'll put that aside, and then now I'll start working on my box. So the box is done with a piece of, let me just pull my pieces here. And I have instructions on how to make this. So even though it seems like boxes would be quite difficult, I made this very easy. So you start off with a square piece that is 7 inches by 4 3/4 inches. Then to make it fairly easy, I just decided to go with whole numbers. I knew my little kisses were going to fit in there if I did whole numbers. So I just did scoring at the 1 inch, 2 inch, just to make it whole numbers. So let me pull out my cutter here. Now, if you have a scoring, why can't I remember the name of it? Like a score pal, or scoring thingamajig, you can use that. But our paper cutter also has a scoring blade. So the dark brown is for cutting. And then we have this light brown, which I would call like creme cake, is for scoring. So we can use this for scoring as well, which is great. It's got double duty. You don't have to buy the scoring platform or scoring piece thing. So we're going to start off with doing our scoring, and we do it on the short edge, 4 3/4 inch side. We're going to score it at 1 inch, 2 inch, 3 inch, and 4 inch. Not too complicated. I'm not using any 1/16 of an inch or anything like that. And then I'm going to take it and score it at 1 inch on this end, on the wider end, the 7 inch side. So 1 inch on this end, and then flip it around and score it 1 inch on this end. And that's your start of your box. Fairly simple. Okay. Then I'm going to take my paper snips, and like I've shown here, I'm just going to do a bit of cutting. So I've got my 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, 1 inch, and then the remainder 3/4 of an inch. So you can see that it's smaller on that one end. That's the side that I'm going to start cutting through. So if I was to turn this way, you would see that I'm going to take my 3/4 of an inch, and I'm going to cut down 1 score line, 2 score lines. So I'm going to cut here down the 1 score line to the 2 score line. I don't know if you can see the score lines on there, but you can see in the image what I'm doing. And cutting down, these are my solid black lines. Then I'm going to cut it across at about 1/3 of the way. So 1/3 of the way. And I'm cutting out this little piece. Boop, that goes in the garbage or recycling. Then I'm going to do the same thing here, 1/3 of the way. Cut that off. Then I'm going to flip it to the other way around. So if I was to take my little image here and flip it around, now I'm going to cut out this bottom piece. Very similarly the same way. So I'm going to cut the bottom here, cut to that first score line, then I'm going to cut 1/3 and 1/3 and get rid of those pieces. Then, not on this drawing, but to make it a little bit easier for the box to go together nicely, I'm just going to, I believe it's called mitering the corners. I'm just going to miter the corners of all of my little tabs, just because sometimes the paper can get bunched in the corners and cause some issues. So I'm just going to miter all of my little corners and miter my flap. And then the one piece I didn't do was I did not score my triangle. So with the Take Your Pick tool, there is a scoring tool that you can use. Of course, I did not bring it with me to the table. So if you want to, you can use this as well. But I'm still going to need my scoring tool. Okay, let me just go grab that. Back in a second. Here we go. I've got my scoring tool here now. So I can just pull it out of here. Now you can either do this with a ruler, the edge of a block, a ruler, or you can use this piece here. So there's also scoring that goes from the corners inward. So I'm going to line up my corner and then line up this corner inside the track. So when I can see those two pieces interjecting together or in together, then I'm just going to take this and run it up my track. There you go. You can see now. I don't know if you can see that. You can see, yeah, that I've got my score line and it's pointing inward. Then I can line it up again and do it this way. I'll show you the other way with the ruler or the side of the stamping block. So we're going to get that into the track. And there we go. I've got my second score line. Or I can take a stamping block. I can line it up this way. And I can, oh no, haha, sorry, it's going in towards the box. So I can line it up this way and just take my scoring tool and run that along that edge. Done. Line it up this way, hold my block down really solid, and then just run it along that way. So that's two different ways of scoring. You can use your ruler or stamping block, or you can use the track and then just grab a scoring tool. Okay, now we're going to burnish our edges. So we're going to grab our bone folder again. Where did I put it? And we're going to burnish all these edges inward. 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 This bone folder just makes this job so much easier to do than having to do it by hand. You just get that really solid, crisp fold. And so just breaking the fibers in the card stock, making them good. Okay, so this is where everybody was like, oh, Kim, you made the box wrong. It's not going to fold into itself. No, 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 no. And I'm like, oh, yes, 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 yes. It will, it will, it will. So they're like, it's too big. It's not small. The squares aren't the right size. Nope, it folds into itself. So we're just going to add a little bit of glue to this edge here. You could also use tear and tape if you want. I find this glue, it dries fast enough for what I'm doing here. So we're just going to grab that, squeeze that nice and tight. To this side, very minimal amount of glue. This glue works really well. You don't need a lot. Folding that in. So you're just making it a 90-degree turn. So you don't want to push that tab in too far. Otherwise you won't have that straight corner. So you're just making that 90-degree corner there. Like here, if you were to go like this, you would of course have too much space, right? So you just want to make that 90-degree corner and place that inside. There we go. The thing about glue is you can maneuver it pretty well until the last minute. Let's get that. There we go. Sometimes I forget to use my little glue holder. Then I have to do a shimmy, shake, shake, shake with my glue, trying to get the glue to come down to the bottom again, where I need it to be. When if I just put it in there, it would be great. Okay, so now you can see here, this box is too wide. Trust me, you just go like this, push in that center point there, pop out these little corners, and it closes up, just like that. So, pushing in the center, and then just letting those burnished edges in like this, and boom. Then we just close our box. Just like that. There is our little square box. Not too hard at all. Now I've got my extra pieces that were left over after we cut off that 3-inch piece off the card. So the 3 inches off the top. I was left with all this extra pieces. So I cut these at 3/4 of an inch and was able to make the decorations for the box. So I can glue those on now. I like to glue them on. Nobody's going to notice this, but I liked to have them kind of lined up so that when I put them on the box, if somebody was to look at them, they would see them all in the right. It would be like a full picture. So let's make sure I've got my box opening here. So there's my box flap. So I'm going to go from the front here and I'm going to place my first one. So I think when I cut it 3/4 of an inch, there was a slight sliver left over. Then I've just centered them. On these two sides I've centered it, and I've centered it this way. Next one. Close up that box now. And I'm going to place this one here. And visually trying to line it up with the one below. Again, centered and centered. Then I'm going to add my third one on this side. Just a little bit of glue. And centered and centered. Looking good. Then the last thing I have is one more piece of cardstock here, and I'm going to stamp my sentiment. So I'm pulling out that red ink again, making sure it's not bumping into it here. And then I'm just going to take this and I'm going to place it right in the center of this piece of paper here. I just had a piece of paper that was like 2 1/8 by 2 1/8. Put that over there to be cleaned. Just a little something for you. I'm going to grab my mini die cutting machine. If you had a circle punch, you could also just use a circle punch and punch this out. But I really like these stylish shaped dies. They have a lot of the shapes that I use all the time. A good staple one to get. And then we're going to take our, is it this size? Nope, it's the next one down, I believe. So the third largest, or the third smallest, fourth largest. Just a little something for you. Yep, that's the right one. We're going to open up our machine here, try and get it off the table. It shakes the table pretty well. It will shake the table a little bit while I'm doing this. Then we're going to get all these plates with it, place die cutting edge down. So this is used for thinlit dies. I'm going to place these two I won't be using today. I place down one piece of my sandwich here, a clear pad, a number 2. I place my piece of paper, then my die cut. That's how it's going to cut through the paper. It'll be on top. And then I place my top of my sandwich, another 2 plate. There we go. I do a little squeeze to kind of hold it, make sure it's pinched in there, and then I push it until the handle starts to, I'll move this up so you can see. When I push it in, the handle will start to grab and do a little dance. And then I know it's ready to go through. I can let go, and then I can put my hand on the die cut machine. Boom. There she goes. She went through. Pull that out. I'll put this away. Close it up later. Messy crafter. I always have to do a little bit of cleanup after. Okay, that can just go in the garbage. Recycling. And now I'm going to bring in my little leftover flower pieces that I did. I'm going to place these on the back of here. So this time I'm putting the glue on the, well actually I placed these on the box, directly on the box. I didn't have them popping up. So this I will glue down to the box, just on the stem and the bottom of the one leaf. And I'm going to place this about a third over. Yeah, just like this. Place the little rose. Same thing. Trying to get that little rose to be up. If I want to, I can take my element here, knowing where I want to place it, knowing that I want a little bit of the design out this edge. I can lay it down, lift it up a bit, and then I know where I want that piece to be. And I can push that down, adhere that down. This is on dimensionals, so I'll just grab a couple of those. Because I want the words to be in the center, I'm just going to place 2 dimensionals in the center, right underneath those words. As you can see, I can see right through it, so I can see where the words are. Putting those 2 there. Pull off the backings. And then I just place that right here in the center. It's popped up a little bit. And then I would just take some kisses that I have, open up my little box, place my kisses inside. 1, 2, 3. You could buy one of those single champagne. They have little champagne bottles. They would go great with some chocolate. And then you have your card as well. This is the one we did today. So there's the end of our project. Here is our little treat box and our easel card that we made today. And we used something that was already meant to be for something else. We took that and we repurposed it and made something extra. So glad you came and learned something with me today. And I hope you have a great Valentine's Day or Galentine's Day, whatever way you need to spread some love and show your love. I hope you do a little bit of treat for someone on Valentine's Day. Okay, talk to you later. Bye.